We're rolling.
Yeah, we
rolling.
Oh
shit! Okay, we started.
They see me rolling with Suks. What is your actual name? I call you my Suks.
That's my the name that they gave me. You remember the song by Beanie Siegel?
No, actually.
Whatever.
Okay. So what's your name? Let's introduce you.
So my first name is Sukdev.
Sukdev. Okay.
Yeah, and it means. Yeah.
There's a meaning.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Names have meanings.
Mine does too, but it just means pale. Nothing cool.
No way. It must mean something else.
It just means pale. Fair.
Maybe Fair. In another language.
No, it's Irish. In the dictionary, it just says pale.
Interesting.
Yeah. What does your name stand for?
Okay, so my name means Suk means happy.
Oh, love it.
And Dev means Lord, so Lord of Happiness.
You know? Oh, that's really cool.
So I was like, yeah, it's fitting for me.
Nice. So I have you on the show. When I first met you one time.
Okay.
Looked into your eyes and I was like, okay, this is a deep, deep person. Because we connected on like this deep level. It's almost like when I see you, like I see your soul. And that's a crazy power to have on people.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you look at people, they kind of have a gaze look, and you can't really connect on that level. But we connected, and you really changed a lot for me. You said, you know, everyone operates from a place of intention, and your intention is to illuminate. You made me realize that my intention was to be free and to chase freedom for not just myself, but for everyone. So thank you so much for that, first of all.
Oh, you're so welcome. I was just talking.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's crazy. So why do you illuminate people?
So why do I illuminate? It's not really like something I do to people. It's more something that I'm doing for myself.
Okay.
So there's this process that I've been undergoing for many, many years now. That's been more about discovering more of who I am. Being an artist, so like I love to express myself through the arts, so either photography or through music or even communication to me is a form of art.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And then, you know, I practiced martial arts for a while too.
Oh,
and
cool.
So there's always this form of like expression that's going on and self-discovery at the same time. So like illuminating is really just shining the light on something that we haven't seen yet. And so sometimes we can get lost, we can get confused. And so when I'm going through my own process, it's really just about discovering more of myself throughout that process.
I love that.
So even when we were together and we're like, we could do so many things, right? And I do so many things and I totally relate. But then there's this judgment that we have to do one thing.
I know.
But it doesn't matter what you do per se, because your doing is just like an external thing. But what matters is that from the inside, it's always coming from this one core. And so that's part of my illumination process, if you want to call it, is about discovering the core self.
And that's beautiful. It takes the pressure off. If one day you feel like making music, you know that you're still staying true to your intentions. And you're not like the next day, oh crap, I have to be doing this. And so you taught me to go with the flow. Like, what does that mean, to go with the flow?
So it's great. So flow, right? Flow is like, it's a state of being. It's a way of nature. A tree just grows, you know what I mean? Or a plant just grows. It comes out of the soil and it starts to blossom. It's doing its thing. And it's going with life. It's going with the sun. It's going with the weather. It's going with its environment. And it's shifting and changing. And yeah, it's doing what it's got to do to survive as well. So going with the flow for me, some people see it as like aimlessly walking around, but it's not. It's actually a form of truly trusting something that's divine, something that's in a form like exterior from us, but we're so connected to it. So it creates this humbleness.
It's the perfect place for this.
I know, exactly. And so within that humbleness, you can really just bring yourself down, bring yourself grounded. And from that space, you're not going to spin out. I find there's something really a very important question to ask is, who or what do you serve? Because if you don't know what you're serving, it's kind of like the I don't know if you ever heard of the king, warrior, lover,
No.
Magician archetypes.
Mm-mm.
Well, these archetypes are generally used for men, but women can jump in on it too.
Okay,
And it's
yeah.
the same concept. But the warrior archetype is the warrior is always serving someone. He's serving his king. Or if he's not serving his king, then there's two opposites to that spectrum. Either he's a how do I call it? What's the word? It's either he's like a masochist. So he's going around and he's just kind of a masochist is someone who hurts himself, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I can't remember it because then there's the sadist.
Oh, yeah.
The sadist is the one who enjoys inflicting pain.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't remember which one's which.
I think that's it.
Yeah, but so the masochist is he just inflicts pain on himself, and the other one is he inflicts pain on others if he doesn't know who he's serving. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
So the warrior always has his underlying mission to undergo and to.
And that just goes with, like, if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. And all of these quotes of, like, well, how are you going to ever feel fulfilled if you don't know your why?
But totally. And finding your why is a really deep question, because you can ask why to everything. You know what I mean? Like you can ask, why am I eating this way? And then it'll bring you down this loop, and ultimately you'll find a core.
Yes.
And so it's within that core where it's like underneath everything you've been told to be, underneath all the pains and all the victories, there's a core you.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to reach the core? Like, people don't want to reach the core, and so they end up living such an unhappy life because they're not willing to just bite the apple and taste what's in the middle. And they find it really hard to ask those questions, and you know what the result is they don't love themselves.
I get it. It's true. Yeah, loving oneself is there and everything, but actually coming back to your core is very painful, because we live in a world that is dark. There's some like bad shit that happens, and some people go through a lot of difficulties, a lot of hardships, and it's hard to just stop. And the more relaxed you become, the more your body starts to speak to you, the more your organs start to actually activate and speak to you. And you start to actually feel the pain that exists inside of your body.
Wow.
It retains the memories, it retains the traumas. And so oftentimes illnesses or disease is like a dis-ease in the body.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? So that's a quote. Crazy. That's a quote from Carolyn Myss, I believe, who talks about that. And
so you can literally manifest cancer based on like your past experiences if it really hits you that hard.
Yes,
and affects you.
It definitely, you can. From the emotional body, if your emotional body is affected and you haven't resolved it, it can transfer into the body, and then your body can develop this, these illnesses or different forms. Yeah. I can speak for myself.
Same here. Yeah. Why? What did you go through?
For me, I've had asthma for my whole entire life, basically. I've had peanut allergies and things as well. Wow. And asthma was really just a manifestation of feeling flustered and feeling contained and not being able to fully express myself. And so, they call it a silent cry, if you will. So like you cut off your breathing so you can get attention in a way. So you could be like, listen, I need space, but you can't express it, so your lungs collapse. So it was a real
That's crazy.
That was a difficult one to understand,
And for me, this past year, I have been so incredibly depressed just because I have no idea where I'm going. And so every day would just snowball into the next, being like, what are you doing with your life? And I would put all this pressure on myself to have it figured out. And then I would think about finances. You're not doing well with this. You're not doing well with this part of your life. And I developed a stomach ulcer. And so they say that you actually can't develop a stomach ulcer through stress, but I really feel like I disagree. And I did have a bacteria, the H. pylori, which I got from infected food because I had salmonella. But I really do believe that bacteria paired up with my emotional state just created this stomach ulcer.
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of people just see things as, physical, 3D, but there's emotional side to it, and there's a spiritual side to it, and it can
totally.
And all three of them come together and work in unison. And science is even starting to prove that in many different ways.
Yes, they have one study that says you can have a stressed out person who looks at stress as good, and you can have a stressed out person who looks at stress as bad, and the stressed out person who looks at stress as bad will actually be affected in horrible ways. I don't remember the study, but if you look at stress as good, then it'll be okay. Yeah,
I totally get it. Or if you see it as a lesson, you know what I mean? Because stress can mean so many different things too. Because like, what is stress, right? Stress is like, it's tension.
It's tension.
And then
but you can have great tension. Like, I was stressed today, but like good stress. Like, he's coming, we're going to do a podcast.
Yes, but that's more excitement.
Excitement. But it's still stress on the body, though.
I get you.
Do you think?
I feel like excitement is more of a... Yeah, there's stress because there's nerves, and there's like the excitement of being into it.
Yeah.
And like everything kind of like... But it's like a feel-good type of tenseness. You know what I mean? So it's lighter. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels like smooth. It feels clearer. It feels it's just lighter, and so that way it's light on the body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas if it's just like a stress, I don't have enough money, etc., etc., you're not following your excitement anymore. You're following the worries and the fears and the doubts.
Yeah.
And then that's what you start perpetuating in your life.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You see what I mean? So it's like it gets really subtle. It gets really, really, really subtle. And the more and more you can just come back to your core, where like none of that stuff is happening, nor the good nor the bad, but this real neutral 0 point that you can really just sink in and stop. You can feel the bad and you can feel the good, and you can operate from there. Because sometimes like chasing only good and high excitement and all that stuff can be an avoidance mechanism.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's some stuff that's lying back there that is just too difficult to handle in the moment. So then we have to, I got to go do this, I got to go do that, I got to go do this. But then the source of your actions are coming from a place of avoidance rather than pure excitement.
And I feel like this podcast is really coming from a place of pure excitement.
That's beautiful. And it feels like it, you know?
Yeah, because I'm like, am I trying to, because you're saying that, and I'm like, am I trying to avoid anything? And I'm like, fuck no. I'm here just with this on my mind. I have nothing, no baggage. And I'm like, I'm learning so much, and I'm gaining so much from people. And it's just making me feel so whole. And I feel like that's what I've been lacking. So this is just like a place of pure excitement. It feels good. It feels so good. So I wanted to talk to you about, and I normally split it up into 4 topics. I didn't introduce that.
Okay.
But the first one was you and entrepreneurship, because you do have your own business, and that's huge, especially in today's day and age. Like, starting your own business is so hard. The second one was spirituality, which we've already gotten into, and I'd love to continue that. And it doesn't have to go in order. We can go with the flow. Yeah. That was the third one, go with the flow. And the last one was... well, right now I don't really remember. So let's go with the flow. all right. So and talk about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
So, yeah, how did you start your own business, and what is your business? You have a bunch.
So I started off shooting weddings as a photographer, and I studied music in school as well. So I just kind of started everything, like everything just started at the same time. I was also an actor as well. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I started everything. And so I got into it because I just couldn't stand working for someone. I couldn't stand following the hours. I never felt good. I was very depressed at the time and just carried a lot of baggage. So I felt like I needed freedom. You know what I mean? I know you can relate to that one. Yeah. I needed freedom. I needed to express. I had so much that was buried inside.
Yeah.
And so I went to the arts, and music was really therapy for me.
Yes.
Going into the beats really helped me go into like my dark stuff and let me kind of let that flow and channel that part out. So I ended up producing over like 150 songs.
That's crazy.
Songs.
Where can we find your stuff?
It's on Spotify. You could just follow Suk's.
So it's SOOKZ.
Yeah, so you can find Suk's music there. And you can find a bunch of tracks that I've been in. And there's other artists I've produced for as well. For
Do you have albums, or they're all just like singles?
So I have my own personal album that came out called Finding Serenity. It was my first album.
That's fitting.
I know. And now I have a new brand that I'm working on, but we don't need to go into that.
Okay. You don't want to plug it?
Yeah, not right now. No,
okay,
no,
that's okay.
Yeah. It's like,
you have the
that's
freedom.
That's the logo.
Illuminate.
Yeah.
I love it.
So that was that. So anyways, entrepreneurship is really, for me, it was a form of expression. And that was like, how can I make money expressing myself, right?
Yes.
And so with music, it was very difficult because you put out your tracks and they're very highly personal, but yet you need to find a way to relate to everybody and the masses and the mass consciousness. You know what I mean? So that's when I realized that when I was creating music, it wasn't with the purpose of giving back. My purpose with music was therapy for myself.
Yeah.
So that was a very big redefining moment for me on the music side, because it showed me that everything I thought I was doing, the career I thought I was chasing, wasn't real. It was really just me being therapeutic with myself.
Yeah. Self-awareness, man.
Well, totally, it was all about that. And then with photos, I started shooting portraits, and that felt good because getting to see someone and seeing how they react when they see themselves was beautiful. And one of my most challenging things was having the ability to actually see myself. And so we are often really good at giving to others what we can't give ourselves.
Yes.
You know, so
why do you think that is?
That's a very good question. I don't know what it is. It's so interesting. Like, even when it's like our mind comes in, our logic comes in, our protection mechanisms come in.
Do you know what I think it is? I feel like society tells us, like, if we love ourselves, we're cocky. Or if you take care of yourself, you're not thinking about others. Be compassionate before you care only about yourself. It's selfish. But in reality, you have to care about yourself. You have to love yourself to love somebody else. But I feel like we've been bombarded with, no, don't do that. Oh, you're taking a trip on your own? Wow. Yeah. I don't know. Like, why? Why is it bad to love yourself?
No, I totally agree. It's not a bad thing at all. It's a really good thing to love yourself.
It's a needed thing.
Yeah.
And so you do workshops too. I saw on your website you do workshops to help other people. What?
Okay, so I do different themes. And part of my practice, and from what I've learned over the years, was learning how to harness your intuition, learning how to harness your own energy field, learning how to actually hear yourself, hear what your body's saying, hear what your spirit wants to say, hear what your heart wants to say.
I love that.
So there's so many, it's basically tools for self-awareness. And being more self-aware enables you to truly understand where you're operating from, why you're operating in that way. And ultimately, the goal for myself is that if you want to see a change in the world, you have to change yourself. And so we could go out there and try to fix people and change people as much as we want. But if you don't even know who you are yourself, you're not really helping anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my belief system in that sense. So I host these workshops not to change people, not to tell them what to do, not to get them to see my point of view, but rather to illuminate what's going on the inside for themselves.
Yeah.
And there's tools such as breathing, really relaxing and getting really calm enough to like be with what's going on. And then when you do that, you change your state of being. Because we change states, right? You can be really sad, you can be really happy, you can be really energized, you can constantly change.
Minute to the next minute.
You can change your state.
Yes.
But there is an element that's underneath all of those states. That's 1 0 point state that I like to call it, where you can come back to this core place. And then within that core place, that's when you start playing. And you start to work with these different energies.
And you kind of try to control them? You can't control them.
No, it's more of a letting go. It's more of a surrender.
Kind of like watching them happen and being okay with them and not controlling them.
Exactly. So you let it wash off, you let it all go, and then you kind of really reconnect with yourself.
What would you say to someone going through something really, really tough, and they try to breathe and they try to ask themselves questions like, who am I? But they're hopeless and they can't find happiness, and they're trying to do everything you're trying to do. They take your workshop. What do you tell them? Like, what's the next step for them?
So it depends on what happens. Like, every individual is different. Like, I can't give you, like, one of the things that I find is it's not healthy in the self-love thing that's going on right now, is that there's so many different hacks or so many different tips and tricks you can do. And like, yeah, there's tools to like kind of band-aid the issues, right? But if you're not able to really get down to the source of it, then things are still going to kind of implode. And it's a work in progress, is what I would say, is that there's not one thing you can do that's going to change you in an instant. Everyone's different. Like, I didn't go through the life you went through, or I didn't go through the life that potentially that person went through.
Yeah.
So I can't really tell you what to do. You know what I mean? But what I can show you is that underneath all that stuff, that, you know, all the stories and the drama and all the things that are playing inside of your mind, your heart is still beating.
Yeah.
It's still beating, and it's pumping life into your body. Your heart wants you to live. It's pumping. Your lungs are breathing.
But that goes back to being grateful. And a lot of people can't understand that, because we live in a world where we can get anything we want. So when it comes to just being alive, that's not enough. Because we can get the car, we can get the girl, we can get whatever we want. So like, okay, we're alive, cool, but now we need the money. Now, why do we live in this world where we can't even accept that a pumping heart is so beautiful?
But that's what I mean. And so, but it's conditioning, it's being told, there's in movies and TV shows, there's dramas, I need to get the girl, there's a point A to a point B, you always have to follow type of thing. But for me, it's like, nature is the perfect reflection of our nature. You know, look at a tree and it grows and it does its thing.
That.
And yeah, evolution itself is very raw. It's very primal. It's going to survive. Like, if you put one plant next to the next plant and there's sunlight and they're planted next to each other, they're going to duke it out. And the one that, you know, really wants to get closer to the sun will do everything it has to do to make sure that plant doesn't get in its way. They'll do that. And sometimes they'll even work in harmony.
That's cool.
So like, there's this whole aspect of this primal nature of even animals and even the way nature does its thing. So it's not all shiny, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, is that people see happiness as a thing that they want to have all the time. But happiness is just a state of being.
But it's the best state of being. I say that because I hate putting myself through sad shows. I hate putting myself through sad songs. Sad songs are the exception. Some of them are good. But I really don't like being sad.
I feel you.
And I don't think other people like it either.
I get you. But, and I know what you're saying. I'll just give you my own story in this situation. There was a moment in time where I felt I wasn't being authentic, or I wasn't being actually real about what I was saying. And I was a super shiny guy. Like, I'd smile, like, yeah, I'm happy. But underneath, I was really, really sad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't deal with it. So I put on this mask of happiness.
That's different. That's different.
You know what I mean? And so I didn't want to deal with the sadness, but it's there, you know? And so we can't deny what's there.
Yeah.
And there's this delusionment that can happen when we keep ignoring what's there, and it gets suppressed and suppressed and suppressed.
I totally agree with you in every sense of finding happiness, but I think that people are trying to find it without wanting to get to the core. So I think that's what we're trying to do here, is make you understand that, yes, you need to find that dark place to get the happiness.
And even I get what you're saying, but with happiness, it feels like a drug almost.
It does.
I need my fix of happiness.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to say, is that happiness is great because it feels good, but that too shall pass. Sadness sucks, but that too shall pass. You know? And so for the word I like to use is joy.
Joy. Can you always be joyful?
You can find joy in your sadness because you can find the lesson within it. You can find joy in the pain because you can see it as a moment of growth. You can feel the pain and be like, this sucks, and fall into it, but then that moment will pass and you can regain joy.
Yeah.
All these things are just states of being, you know what I mean? And it's finding this neutral point that really just grounds you. And again, it's humbleness and being humble to and honoring your feeling, honoring the sadness that comes up, honoring the anger that a lot of people feel.
How do you feel about, let's say you're in a state of like being angry. Do you want to drink your drink?
I was about to pick it, yeah.
I saw that impulse.
You're catching me.
How do you feel about people who are authentically sad or deep down very angry, and then they show that? So they go, let's say, to the gym. I'm at the gym often. And let's say that they're really, really sad at the gym. Well, that rubs off on other people. So what do you say about that? Like being infected almost, because it's a poison to take on somebody else's problems and to take on somebody else's sadness. And I think that's why I strive all the time to be my best self, which is my happiest self, because I don't need to infect other people with the things that I'm going through. So I feel like that's where the face also comes from, is like, try to be your best self for other people, but still stay true to you. And that doesn't mean like smiling if you don't want to smile. If you don't want to smile, don't smile. But don't like air out your dirty laundry on people who are also have their own problems. What do you think about that?
But I think that, you know, this whole thing that, yeah, if you feel bad, you feel bad, and you can feel bad, you know, and then if you feel good, you can feel good, you know. And so when we feel like we're getting other people's stuff, or people are airing their dirty laundry, and you start to like have this conflict occur, it's just like, if it's not about you in that moment, it's more about them.
Well, what if they use you as the outlet because they know you're the only person they can talk to about their stuff that they're going through?
Then they see you, that means they see you as someone who can actually handle the weight of their problem. They actually feel like you can hold space for what's going on. And if you in that moment do not want to hold the space, you can always say no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But holding space is, I feel like at the core of it, people just want to be seen.
Yeah.
They just want to be heard and felt.
Yeah.
Because holding space for someone is probably the most powerful thing, and you just being you and present is holding space. It's as simple as that. But being present for a lot of people is like, it can get weird and uncomfortable or awkward. But
I guess I'm talking about more like abuse, because I did have a relationship where I was used as the therapist, and the only connection we had was a one-way ticket to me. Like that person didn't know anything about me, but used me as help for their lives. And I felt very abused in the sense that like, I felt like I was giving them all of my energy, and it wasn't a relationship at that point.
I get it. And okay, so to go through that motion of it, there's this component of power. There's always power dynamics that are at play. And so when we blame someone, or we say it's that person's fault, then yeah, like situations happen where someone like can inflict violence on someone else, and it's like, yeah, that person was an asshole at that moment. But we can't keep blaming everyone else for the things that are affecting us. If we're continuously giving and giving and giving, and they're using and using and using, and they're not giving anything back, well, then it's up to you to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
Why am I giving so much? You know what I mean?
That's what I did.
Reclaim your power. There you go.
And I reclaimed
And
my
now
power.
you're really doing this awesome podcast.
You
know what I mean? You reclaim your power. Retake it, you know? And there's this, and the people who are abusing will realize, they're like, oh, shoot.
And they did back off.
Exactly.
But I do feel extreme guilt that I don't know what's going on in their lives anymore, because I backed off because I did it for me. So I feel guilty that I'm not there for them. And I don't know what they're going through now because I took a step back.
I get you. So there's information for yourself within that guilt that sometimes we repeat patterns that have happened in our childhood. We repeat patterns that have happened in our teenagehood. we all have to discover ways to meet our needs. And meeting one of those needs is through love. And so sometimes to find love, to receive love, you kind of have to shapeshift yourself. You have to make yourself become something so that you can receive that. Yeah, so we all have needs. We got to get our needs met. And so sometimes we have to change ourselves in order to get those needs met. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Adulting, that's what it's called.
Yeah, and so sometimes it's really confusing because you ever see some individuals or sometimes and you're like, wow, this is it's like a kid in an adult's body, especially when people get angry or frustrated or triggered.
All the time.
And they get like petty about things, you know?
That's really interesting that you look at that.
But you see it, you feel it, you know?
You feel it.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that there's a trigger that's coming up. And that trigger is being like, look, this is something inside of yourself that
hasn't healed.
And it's not serving you anymore.
Or others around you.
Exactly.
This is why I think self-awareness is the biggest superpower.
Well, that's
a lot of people don't have it.
So,
or if you want to put it here, you can.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. And like, how do you find self-awareness, right? Like, where do you get that from? Where do you get that wisdom from? And we can go to external sources and we start reading like this book or we start hearing something and we get information. We get flooded with information, especially now on your social media feed. Like I see memes. I don't know how many memes I see in a day. It's all positive, good stuff. Like you can do it. Why not you? Blah, 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 blah. Like really great stuff. And it's good to reinforce that positive mindset. However, we really are lacking wisdom and wisdom within oneself and cultivating wisdom within oneself and actually going through things by ourselves as well, because that's where you can really start to sculpt your being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a continuous process.
What would you tell someone who's looking to become more wise?
Okay, so someone who's looking for wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, I would say take up something that makes you feel relaxed.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Take up, like for myself, it was meditation. It really helped me relax and calm down and get to a space that was really just quiet. And within that quiet space, I could start to feel. And when those feelings would come up, I could start to be with it and I could start to understand where it came from. Our subconscious minds are incredibly powerful.
Yes.
They store everything. And what you allow to become conscious is what sets you free.
That's so true. So you'd be like lying down. Maybe you'd have like a burst of anxiety. And then you would like look at that thought and be like, okay, where is this coming from? And you would find it just in that thought.
Just to give you an example, when I would experience anxiety, I would sit down and I would breathe and I'd be like, what am I avoiding right now? You know what I mean? And before I would, maybe smoke a joint, or I would find someone to go hang out with, or I would jump to maybe making music or find some form of escape.
Yes.
So I can kind of like not think about it, and then it's kind of gone, and then maybe a couple of days later it comes back and I'm like, fuck, anxiety's back. What do I do?
Yeah.
And so one of the practices that I do and that I actually give in the workshops and the one-to-one sessions is that you just sit, really get relaxed, and instead of letting yourself spin out, feel it. And then I would literally feel in my shoulder, I'd feel it in my lower back.
The tension. The
tension that was there, and just breathing into it would start to loosen up. And then I'd get this wave of emotion that would come up. I didn't know where it was from. I didn't know what happened. And the story behind that emotion, I didn't know what it was per se, but I knew that there was an emotion that needed to be released.
Wow.
So in doing that, it set me free. And then I was way more calm and I was way more efficient with everything else that I wanted to do. You know what I mean? So my thing is get really relaxed without an external stimulus.
But let's just say, for instance, like I appreciate smoking weed, okay?
Yeah, definitely.
And some people do say that they use it as an escape, but other people use it just as an extra form of happiness. Mm-hmm. So like, let's say that you do your meditation and you have no baggage after that session. Let's say you do it for 20 minutes. Even sometimes 5 minutes is a long time for people to sit still. And you breathe everything through and you feel powerful and like you just went through a session and you're okay. Is there anything wrong with smoking a joint after that?
There's nothing wrong with smoking a joint. There's nothing wrong with having a drink. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an external stimulus. But what I'm trying to get at here is that you can make yourself high. You can make yourself energetically high that it'll last you 2-3 days in a way that is not even, that replicates what smoking a joint would feel like.
Oh no, it's a different kind of high. It's a life high.
Exactly.
I've been on it for 7 days. Like seriously, since I started this podcast, I feel like I'm on crack. I have this like, and it's because I'm getting energy from other people.
Exactly.
I'm
and it's
literally,
symbiotic
yes.
too, and you're giving it back as well. So it's not like you're just taking, you're excited, and your excitement is like, I feel like I'm here right now because your excitement literally pulled me into this podcast.
Pulled you into it. I love that.
You know what I mean? So that's what you're cultivating right now. And you didn't need to smoke a joint to get here.
No, but let's say tonight I want to.
Yeah, you can. I'm
Boom.
not saying it's a wrong thing.
Yeah, it's just don't use it. It's when it becomes a form of like avoidance from your life.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And that's when things can kind of get really iffy because, and you want to see your tendencies, you want to see your habits.
Yeah.
Because your habits, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything in a way, you know? So that's what I'm trying to say is our habits can get in the way. Our habits really just show us who we are in a sense. So if you're constantly picking up a joint every single night to help you go to sleep,
yeah,
then why can't you really
Why can't you sleep? That's
you know?
it. That's the question.
And like what's keeping you up at night is the real question.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't want to deal with that question because, you know, there could be some heavy things that are going on in your life or there's some things you just don't want to face.
It all comes back to your core.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and relaxing yourself, relaxing your being, the more relaxed you can become, everything starts to open up and become fluid.
You keep reminding me to like take a deep breath, relax my shoulders, because I'm an uptight person in the sense that I'm like super chill, but uptight in the sense that I always need to be fidgeting with things. I always need to be moving, and I blame that on my ADHD. So I'm attention deficit. Like I lose attention quickly. And I think this is why I love this podcast, because it forces me to be so present for 1 hour. Do you think that ADHD and like all of these sort of disorders are self-manifested, or do you think that you can heal them?
But
you know what I mean?
I don't know if ADHD is necessarily a negative thing, or
it's a disorder. It's like an attention disorder.
But I feel like, you know, yeah, like you can put things on people saying they can't focus on something in the moment, you know, but I just see it as an abundance of energy, an abundance of ability to see many different things, you know, or an abundance to like, okay, this, that, like you have a certain spark of energy that's coming up that wants to go pick out many different things at one point. That's a gift in a way.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And so it's not about trying to suppress it and be like, I need to remove that part of myself. Like for myself, when I was experienced depression, right? And feeling very low, I was like, how is this serving me? And I wanted to get rid of it. And I was trying to find ways, medication. I was trying to find different ways to actually stop this depression or this low state, until I started to just accept it and see it for what it was, and that this low state is actually guiding me to some places. It was at one point I had this vision of Anubis.
What is that?
Anubis. He's the Egyptian god of the underworld.
Okay.
And so it told me to follow Anubis's ways. And when I say it showed me, is when I'm in meditation and the subconscious gives you an idea, and then you follow that idea, and then it kind of manifests into your real world.
Wow.
Anyway, so Anubis is the ultimate judge of heart. He weighs your heart versus the weight of a feather to see how light you are and how humble you can become, etc., etc. So anyways, I discovered that this depressive feeling was not something that I needed to get rid of per se, but I needed to accept that, I have a lot of sadness. There's a lot of grief inside me that needs to be expressed. And me running away from it isn't going to serve it, or me wanting to get rid of it isn't going to serve me. But rather being with it and understanding that it is serving some form of a purpose at this moment in my life,
Yes.
then it's okay. And then once I accepted that, it started to fade and fade
Oh,
and
really?
fade. Yeah, because it was like, okay, well,
Now
I don't serve a purpose for you anymore, the depression says. You know what I mean? And it starts to fade away. And some people go their whole life with it, coping with it.
Yeah.
And it's really, it is sad in a way. But at the same token, if we can learn to be with it and learn that actually it's there serving a purpose, perhaps. There's an article that Jim Carrey wrote about depression. And he said it was a form of requiring deep rest from wearing a costume.
That's cool.
And people who often do suffer from it, they do sleep a lot. Or some people need to stay up more. And I won't go into the science of it. But deep rest, because there's a part of ourselves that isn't being expressed. And there's this judgment of not feeling okay. Like, everyone says you have to be happy and you have to feel good. But if you don't, then there's this judgment about it. I'm like, I don't feel good. Something's wrong. I have to fix it, But there's something that is magical and there's information within it if you can get quiet enough to feel it.
To listen to it.
So a disorder is like a disorder, you know what I mean? Within one's being, because it's not orderly. Right? Organized, if you will.
Organized to society's standards.
Exactly. And so we kind of have to like dance around this whole thing. So I see these parts of ourselves that come up as gifts, or I see these parts of ourselves that are teaching us something in a specific moment of our lives. They call it the dark night of the soul, if you will. When you're going through that moment, to really, like, if you can find a way to just be with it and be able to cope and survive and do what you got to do at the same time, you will get out of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And to touch upon that, like the same thing when I found out that I had ADHD, I was fresh out of university and I didn't have deadlines. And so I was like adulting for real. And I realized that I couldn't focus on anything. And so what did I try to do? I tried to get medication. So I went to go get Ritalin. Took Ritalin for maybe a day, and instantly I could focus on cleaning the house. So I cleaned my entire bookshelf. Everything was so neat. And then let's say that washed away after like 5 hours. And then I was like, okay, so I'm back to my normal self. But do I want to live like this? So it took doing a lot of research from other people on should I live medicated. And I came across a lot of people who said that their personality is ADHD. They do many, many things. So do you want to change the person that you are? And I was like, hell no. Hell no. My creativity comes from having different ideas and not being able to focus on things. So do I want to suppress who I am by taking a pill that will literally let me focus on one thing, and it's just eliminating who I am?
That's what I'm saying. And even that whole thing about you not being able to focus is a false belief.
Yeah.
Because look,
Focus.
This required focus.
Yeah.
This required attention, and you put your attention into it, and you made it happen. And now we're here. You're
Some
recording a
pills,
podcast.
no pills,
You see what
no
I'm saying?
medication.
So I don't believe in this self-judgment process, and
Which so many people do.
and like to give like I do. Judgment is important because it does give us a gauge between what's right and wrong.
Yes.
If we don't judge, then like it's just mayhem,
Free for all,
chaos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need judgment because it creates the capsule in which you're gonna live. But once you've worked out your capsule and you're feeling yourself judging, perhaps it's a indication that you're stepping outside of your capsule. Do you know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah.
So it's like you create a structure around yourself so you can be something.
And
Anyways,
you did go into, you teach people how to trust their intuition. What is that all about?
So intuition is, you ever get a gut feeling?
Always.
And you get a hunch, you walk into a room, I don't know, you
I
feel
live,
the vibe.
through my gut feeling.
So it's an instinctual thing that we used to rely upon all the time back in the day until we developed technology, everything that kind of serves its purpose. But there's another level of awareness, another level of intelligence that is like supreme, that goes beyond even our, and maybe technology will get there at some point. But right now it's like you can follow stuff, and we're being bombarded by information. There's a place that you can just tap into that you'll get a hunch and you follow it. And so what we do in the workshops is sometimes we sit with an individual, we sit as a group, and we start to use our intuition to tune into another individual, or just to tune into ourselves.
Oh, that's really cool.
Or you can ask, like, your intuition is in a way accessing your subconscious mind, if you will.
Okay.
To give it in like science terms. And you can go in, you can tune in, tap in, and you can pull out information. For example, what should I do as a career, or what do I need to do as my next steps for this project,
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll give you information that perhaps won't even have anything to do with your career, but that bit of information is what you needed in order to move forward in your career.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it gets like the possibilities are limitless within it, but following your gut, following your hunch, following your intuition is like it's a GPS tracking system that can help you move along your path.
What does it feel like for you? Like, does
intuition?
What is there good intuition and bad intuition, or good gut feelings, bad gut feelings?
So you can get hunches that aren't necessarily yours. This is what marketing is all designed to do. So you see billboards everywhere. You see signs of McDonald's, coffee, whatever, and you can ask your body, and your body will be like, I want coffee. But that's actually your mind playing tricks on you.
Okay.
Because they're just bombarded with info. Okay. So the way it works for me is that I will get very, very calm and quiet and be in that centered space. And once I'm in there, then I can go up and ask. Whereas if I'm just like, oh, what should I do now? Or like, I'm too tense in that moment to be able to fully listen. And I'll be following perhaps what my mind feels is logical.
Okay, so going with the flow does not mean that you just let the day take you through places. It actually means like being really quiet, first understanding your voice and your gut, and going with your flow, not the flow.
That's what I'm saying. But there is the flow aspect, because it's not all about you. There is a world we live in. There is nature. There is divine laws at place that you cannot break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're there. So it's a co-creation. You'll get an intention. You'll get a feeling like, for example, today was, Suks, what do I want to do today? I need to get things done, So I sat, I got quiet, and I was like, man, you have a lot to do. and that's what it said. You already have a lot to do.
So thank you so much for being here.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I just stopped. I was like, yeah, wow, I don't need a to-do list. I already know what I'm doing. And so I'll just be present in it. I'm going to enjoy my day. And so the theme of the day that came up for me was live the day.
Live the day.
That was for today. You know what I mean? Tomorrow it will be something else.
Did you write that on your picture? Live the day.
I should write that, yeah.
Live the day. That's so beautiful. And so do you have a quote of the day every day when you wake up?
I try to do it. To be honest, sometimes I'm not in it. Yeah. Sometimes I get lost in my own head and I get lost in my own expectations. I'm not like Mr. Perfect at it,
No, nobody's perfect.
Exactly. But it's a continuous practice that I do try to practice, to stop, sit, be still. And for everyone, it's something different. For someone, it might be like, I'm going to make my bed in the morning. Or for someone, it might be, I'll go for a jog, It just kind of helps them tune in.
And be present.
Yeah.
Because that's so important.
That's where it all starts.
We have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And what's really funny about my last two questions is that the first one is, can you give people a life hack that'll help their day, go by better? But you don't agree with life hacks.
I believe in life. Life is designed in a way to flourish. If you look at the way nature grows and builds itself, it's made to survive, it's made to thrive, it wants to thrive. You know what I mean? So when we try to resist life, we're resisting ourselves in a way. And in resisting ourselves, we create tension, we create these like hard boundaries that we start fighting against. So I think as a hack, if you will, is
call it something you want.
I'd say trust.
Trust.
trust, have faith, have faith in yourself and have faith in nature, have faith in whatever it is that you want to believe in as a higher power. Have faith and stay humble, bring yourself down and realize that
we are all equal.
Exactly. And it's a process that we're undergoing. Nobody's going to be perfect in one shot. But if you can live fully daily, then you are fully engaged in your life. And by being fully engaged, that's when you're harnessing the magic and beauty of it.
What if somebody's fully engaged in a life that they can't stand or that they hate?
So if you're in a situation that you're not happy with and you're not content with, I would say start with what you have. What do you feel happy with? What do you feel happy with? What do you feel grateful for in this moment?
And that could be anything from having a roof over your head, the smallest things. It could be from having
a hot cup of coffee.
From having fingers.
It could be anything. Start with that and take steps and continue to move forward. Always move forward with what you have. And don't feel like you need to have the $1 million home to feel like a success, or you need to have the trillion views of your things to feel big.
What if somebody is fine on their own and they have all of the self-love and everything, but they're trying to get money or external objects for another person or someone they need to help?
Okay, so that's a good question. If you want to be support, I believe that leading by example is a great way to be supportive of someone and also honor and respect their process. Because sometimes when we see someone who isn't as self-loving as we are, we put a judgment on them. Like I said, judgment's good because it helps us gauge what's good and what's not good, but that's only in our perspective. And I think it's important to honor everyone else's process. As long as it's not affecting you in a negative way, honor their process. Help them, or let them be themselves and let them discover it for themselves. But if you lead by example and you just being you in your fullest and most present state is probably one of the most powerful things you can do for someone, because they'll see it and they'll feel it.
And they'll want to have that love for themselves.
Exactly. And it'll start to poke holes within themselves because you feel it. You know what I mean? It's more than just concepts or knowledge and more than information. It's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
When you walk into a room with someone who is super successful, super positive and all that stuff, you feel it.
It rubs off on you.
It does. And they didn't have to say anything to you, but you just felt it. And so sometimes just shining, just shine.
Just shining. I love that.
The sun doesn't dim its shine. When the sun goes up, it's shining. It does not give.
And so does the moon. The moon shines.
The moon shines as well.
Moonshine.
Yeah.
What about if you want to change the world and you feel like you're at such a low level in society that you won't possibly have an impact on the world?
I think that we put so much emphasis and pressure on changing the world that we totally forget that we're living today, right now. And that you can make an impact on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-by-moment basis. I actually did a video about this whole thing.
Wow.
You can.
Where can they find this video?
On YouTube, actually.
On YouTube, under Suks?
On Light in a Body.
Light in a Body.
Yes.
Illuminate.
And on a day-to-day basis, you can make a difference. You can go outside, you see someone at a grocery store, and hey, how's it going? Or they're passing your lettuce, and if some people are rude, they're rude.
Don't let it affect you.
It's not you, it's them.
Yeah.
It's not a reflection of yourself. It's a reflection of them. And that's okay. But you did your part. You know what I mean?
Be kind.
You're just being yourself and living from your heart and living open. And just by doing that, you feel so much better. You start to actually feel a person. You start to actually see them. You actually start to realize, oh shoot, okay, maybe they're going through something.
Yeah.
And if everyone just started doing that day to day, I mean, the world will start to change.
Yeah.
Because we can't put all this pressure on one individual to change the world. It's not fair to that person.
It's not fair to yourself if you're putting that pressure on yourself.
The weight of the world is on you. No.
Every day you can make a small difference.
And that's all there is to it. And it's not, let's say, sexy, if you will.
Yeah.
But
hard work is never sexy.
Exactly. It's consistency and a practice and discipline with it. Faith and humbleness and trust, you know. All that stuff adds up. And if everyone does it individually,
chain reaction.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So the last question is, for somebody who is about to give up on their dreams, what would you tell them to not give up?
That's a very good question. What would I tell them to not give up?
Or what do you think about that? Somebody giving up on their dreams?
Well, because sometimes we have a dream and we think it's our dream. But I think it's important to realize where your dream is coming from.
Yeah.
And so if you're getting these feelings of doubt, if you're getting these feelings of that you don't want to continue it, ask yourself, why don't you want to continue it? And if it's because that you feel no one's going to see you, no one's going to, no one's going to accept you, well, then you're actually seeking validation.
Exactly.
You're not actually chasing a dream that you want.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So then you got to change that validation thing you have going on.
You have to change your intentions and do it for you and not for other people.
That's what I'm saying. And so if you start operating from a place of, okay, like, I get in the zone when I paint. I love painting. Then just paint. Or I love making music. Or if I want to do 3-4 different things, just go do it.
No expectations.
Exactly. We expect so much from everyone else to give to us, but it's you. It's your life. It's your dream. It's not everyone else's dream. And then you create it, and then you create for others. And then you start to really actually start to tap into the consciousness instead of just tapping into your own self. You know what I mean?
So what if you're living your dream and it's making you feel really good, but you're not getting anywhere with it? So, and then you're actually thinking about giving up on a dream that is really good for you and it is your dream.
If it's at that point, I would say continue. Have faith. If you're operating from a place that your craft is really good for you and you feel good about it, and at first you'll do some things and you might not get many people there. I mean, I've done workshops where I had one person show up, and then I've had other where like 15 have showed up.
Yeah.
And when sometimes I'd have this anxiety, I'm like, shit, what if no one comes, you know? And then I was like, oh, I'd have to face that. Like, no one's going to come to this workshop. It's too bad. I have so much magic to offer.
Yeah.
But it's not about me in that situation, and it's not a reflection of me. It's just a reflection of what I'm putting out there, let's say, right now is not in alignment with what somebody might need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's okay. But as long as you show up, and as long as you continuously show up and you keep at it, it takes time. It's a marathon. It's not a race. And you're not competing against anyone.
That's it. You're against yourself.
Exactly,
To level up.
That's all it is. So it's a consciousness thing. It's about understanding where you're at. It's about really being with yourself and knowing that you can make it happen.
I love that. Are there any last thoughts that you want to close them out with? We have such deep conversations.
I know, that was epic. I feel like just like really relax, like there's so much stress, so much like motivation, inspiration, and I get it. It's
Those
great.
are all my hashtags.
I get it, but it's great. I get it, but at the same token, like, let's just like, it's okay it's day by day,
And if you're not feeling that, then it's okay to not feel that. But if you are feeling that, then it's okay to feel that too.
The fire's there. Run with it.
Yeah.
But don't
just
force
make sure
it.
it's raw and real to who you are.
That's what
right
I'm talking
now.
about. That's what
Man, that was amazing.
Yo, thank you.
I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, and we will
you.
definitely have Sukes back for another podcast.
Yeah, I'm so down.
All right, we peace.
Peace.
Peace.